Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Bill Poston on the line. He is founder of multiple businesses and very active in the nonprofit space. Today, we will be talking about Bill's business, The Launchbox. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, Bill. So I'll tell you, we have a lot of content to cover today, and I'm really excited to understand your model, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and really how you're helping new entrepreneurs succeed and thrive. I'm going to leave that as a little bit of a cliffhanger because we're going to get into that. But just to get us started, let's get into your background, and because you're uniquely qualified in this space, and I want people to see that. So let's just get into your background. How'd you get started on this entrepreneurial journey?
So I'm coming out of college. I actually took a little bit of a detour and spent 4 years working in the hotel business in Hawaii. That's where I met. Not a bad gig.
Poor guy out of college.
Yeah, I mean, there was some real work involved, but there was quite a bit of fun as well. I came back to Texas and went to business school, and from business school went to Deloitte Consulting. And spent 10 years there in what I consider to be an extended apprenticeship to learn how to be a management consultant. In 2004, I left Deloitte with a partner of mine and started a new firm named Kalypso. Kalypso was a management consulting firm focused on helping our clients deliver on the promise of innovation. And over a 16-year period, we grew that to a global scale, over 300 employees, and sold it last year in a strategic transaction. Took some time off trying to figure out what comes next. The logical thing would be to do it again, start another management consulting firm. And in contemplating that future, came to the realization that it may be more fun and more valuable, instead of starting one firm, to help other people start firms and actually launch 20 new consulting firms instead of just one. So that's the quick story from how we got to young college graduate to the founder of the Launchbox.
Yeah, and when I was first off, it's an amazing story. But when I was prepping for this interview and I was looking at it, I'm like, if I had that thought process, I mean, it's easier said than done. So if I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna instead of just starting Mission Matters, why would I start one media company when I could start 20? I would have been out of my mind. That's the first thing I thought. And I want to go where we will go in further into the Launchbox and your model, but I want to backtrack a little bit and go I want to spend a little bit more time on your background, because this experience at Deloitte and this transition to being a business owner, I mean, that's a big deal. So there's a lot of people that are watching this right now that may have, very high paying jobs, like in other prestigious companies where they have the name, they have the brand, they have the experience, they have the funnels. I mean, they have a lot of things, and they may be, rock stars at what they do, and they may be thinking about going out on their own, but that's easier said than done. I mean, tell us a little bit more about, what that's like, so that, just to benefit of hindsight kind of conversation, right?
Sure. I mean, it's easy in retrospect to say that it was a simple decision.
Yeah.
I also believe that circumstances in life kind of push you in a direction that in hindsight looks like fate. And when we were contemplating launching Kalypso, we worried about who's going to hire us and who's going to want to work for us. All of those were the big concerns that we had. Turns out those weren't problems, right? We had clients on day one. We grew the business month over month, for 16 years. So
wow.
Finding people that needed help, that were willing to hire us, and finding amazing consultants to join the team actually turned out to be the easy part. It was all the stuff we had no idea about that was a major pain. How do you build a website? I mean, for the first 6 months of the firm, our website was a flower. That's just basically it. It was a URL with a picture of a flower on it.
What year was this? I need some context here. Roughly. What time period was this when if they would have kept to look, it was a flower?
2004. We were
okay. So we were in the internet age. Okay, yes. That's terrible.
That's another story. I mean,
I know. Go ahead.
And you have employees. Well, they need health care and they need a 401k plan. And all of a sudden you're hiring people in multiple states, and you learn that there's different taxes in different states that have to be managed. And that was a real struggle. I mean, for probably 2 years, in addition to my role as a client service partner at Kalypso, I was also the one who was making the coffee and running the payroll and approving the expense reports and trying to figure out how to get these plans in place and build technical infrastructure to support growth. It was quite a challenge, and it was all things that I really had no experience and no knowledge to know how to do.
Yeah, and I guess that is a great transition for the launch box. So, and as I hear you explain this, which we've never had this conversation before, as I hear you explain this, I'm like, oh, so some of the basis of what you're doing with the launch box was really just to solve some of those early problems you had yourself, partially. So maybe just an overview of the launch box, just to get us started on that end.
Sure. So the Launchbox is a firm to help start new professional services firms. That could be management consulting, it could be marketing, engineering, accounting, even legal services. Really anything that is people-based and the value of the firm is delivered through its people. We are structured to help organizations launch new firms. And go ahead.
So in launching these firms, I want to talk about the one, instead of launching 1 to 25. I want to stick on that point a little bit longer. Like that's a big goal. That's a big goal. Like when you sat down and you thought about going after this, like what was going through your mind?
I realized that there are any number of successful professionals out there that are that are doing their work and doing great work, managing successful practices, probably within a larger organization. And if they're really good at what they do, they may also have an entrepreneurial itch.
Yeah.
But walking away from a comfortable, high-paying position in a large firm is, it's no simple task. And our job was to make that decision easier. So, how do you de-risk the transition from, successful partner in a large firm to entrepreneur starting your own? How do you provide them with the support to take care of the administrative burden so that they can focus on the things that they do really well? Presumably selling, delivering great value to clients, and managing and developing people. I don't want founders worried about payroll systems and state taxes and IT infrastructure and legal and all that stuff, right? I mean, we will take care of all of that. We'll put a floor under your income to make sure that you don't have to sleep on the couch and eat ramen while you're starting your own business. And then it's just the having been there and done that and managed a full cycle from starting, scaling to selling a firm. We've got lots of scars and lessons learned that we can bring to bear to help organizations through that same process.
Okay, so you're helping people, just to recap that. So you're helping people with obviously the administrative side of things. You have the knowledge and the wherewithal. I mean, you've grown your own firm, you've exited, you've proven your model. So you've proven your merit there, obviously. And then growing even just your revenue in that firm, you said month over month for, I believe you said 16 years or so. Like that's I don't know anybody else that's done something like, so that's a big deal in itself. But then you're also providing capital for the right type of founder. So that's a big deal. So now you said so you don't have to sleep on the couch, but a lot of these people, a lot of the founders that they may already be very successful in their career. So it's hard to take that leap without necessarily knowing what's always on the other side. But in your expertise and in your grooming, you're obviously also by being an investor in these founders, you're also taking a modicum of risk yourself. Like how do you go through this founder process of like, what does that take, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's no different than hiring a partner into a firm, right? The hiring profile is the same, and what I look for in a founder is, number one, it starts with work ethic. I grew up on a farm. My founding partner at Kalypso grew up on a farm. It's pretty good background for knowing how to work. So you're looking for someone who is willing to do the work and understands what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Obviously, in the professions, there is an intellectual capacity and a certain amount of intellectual horsepower that's required to differentiate yourself and do great work. So a combination of work ethic and intellectual horsepower. But then I'm also looking for, I call it that state school attitude about life. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We may combine a little bit of humility with a bit of a chip on our shoulder and something to prove. And then the fourth thing that I'm always screened for is people that are interesting. At Kalypso, we called it characters with character, but weird hobbies, something that you could, that would hold your attention during a dinner party as you're getting to know somebody.
That's awesome. And that the whole state school view on life, I think that's such a great analogy for that. I've never heard that, but when you're saying it, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, oh, I get exactly what you mean on this. And it fits. I get it completely. So Bill, that being said, if when you're thinking about the founder you're going to hire, now you're not creating carbon copies, if you will, of your firm. So you're not creating, I don't know a better word for this, but McFirm. So each firm has its own culture, its own mission, its own DNA, which is led by, of course, the founder that is starting the business, and that's one of the reasons why you're bringing them on board. Can you talk about that? Because I see a big difference in terms of like just a typical like franchise model plug and play and what you're doing, because it is really unique in the market.
Yeah, so in order to benefit from scale, the Launchbox has to drive some standardization. Sure. But we drive standardization in the stuff that doesn't matter, right? So, your time and expense reporting system is not going to determine your success or failure, right? And so we drive standardization in the back office. But each firm has its own character, its own culture, its own functional scope of services, its own differentiated place in the market. What I consider my job is to help the founder and coach him or her through the process of defining those things. And in our short experience with the first 3 firms we've launched, there's a bit of a fine line where I use the term, look, I don't want to name your dog for you, right? If you're adopting a puppy, you have to name it, right? I can't tell you what your mission is. I can't tell you what the core values of your firm are going to be. I can coach you through that. I can help you. I can be a sounding board and help determine whether that is going to sell. But it really is a process of helping a founder articulate those things for themselves.
Let's go further into the so you mentioned multiple firms already that have been launched through the Launchbox. What are some of the difficulties in in, you know, scaling these types of firms that you've already brought on? Because you've done, of course, obviously done it for yourself. You obviously have the model, but you know, you're at your first three, and I think you're growing even faster than that. I think you told me that your team is
Yeah.
like, hey, I don't know how many want on board at one time now. So tell us a little bit more about the difficulty of like what it looks like to scale one of these businesses.
Yeah, so we started and right out of the bat had three organizations that were ready to go, and
Wow.
we didn't even really have our business set. We didn't have the infrastructure in place, we didn't have the team in place, so we've been running to actually catch up with our portfolio companies.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the normal chaos of everyday life as an entrepreneur. I tell the team, if you're looking forward to a day when everything is set and perfect and easy, then you're probably going to be disappointed, because we will keep pushing.
So we always talk about the good, like we've covered a lot of the good. I like to spend just a little bit of time on the other side. Like, what kind of mistakes have you made along the way in these processes?
So I mean, it's interesting because I'm talking about going fast and my team's saying, hey, let's slow down. And yet all the mistakes that I can really point to along my journey have been the result of going too fast.
Mm.
So clearly it's not a lesson that I have learned very well. I can point back to periods of time in our growth at Kalypso where we probably got out ahead of ourselves a little too far. We expanded into Europe, I think our second year of
Wow.
and it was opportunistic, right? We had a partner there that we trusted and knew and wanted to launch, and we had clients that needed to be serviced there. But your second year of existence is probably not the time to expand internationally.
Mm-hmm. Do you think?
We would have been better off focusing our energies and growing the firm and establishing a stronger foundation at home.
Mm.
We've acquired some firms along the way in order to grow and recognize the challenges associated with integrating different cultures and different attitudes into the organization. So, I point to probably 3 or 4 examples of us maybe getting a little greedy about growth. Mm-hmm. And not recognizing the management distraction and the challenges that would come along with those moves.
Mm. So I want to take you to take a moment and talk directly to the potential founders out there. So we talked about a little bit about like the profile and what you look for in a partner. If you're giving, having that dialogue, you're sitting down with them and somebody's inquiring, like, how do they know if they're ready to for that leap? And I don't mean on the personal side, by the way, of course, because that's going to be an individual decision. I mean, like, if they're reassessing their career, what they want and things like that on the non-personal side, like, how do you know if you might be the right fit for that type of transition?
So I go back to our experience at Kalypso, right? Is anyone going to hire us, and is anyone going to want to work for us? If you can answer those 2 questions, then you don't have to worry about all that other stuff, because we're going to take care of that. But we're also going to provide you with enough of a runway and the capital to help support your transition. So, if you are successfully managing a practice today, mm-hmm. right, and you have value that you're adding to the marketplace, and you're serving clients well, and you've got repeat business and a team that is loyal to you, then I think you're prepared to be a successful entrepreneur. We started Kalypso with no money and no idea what the hell we were doing. And it took us 16 years to build a $100 million firm, but we got there. So part of the pitch for the Launchbox is, if we can do it with no money and no experience and no expertise, we believe that we can help you get to the same point in half the time, right? We've got capital to fund growth, and we'll take care of all of the nonsense. And you've got somebody who's got, the scars from the lessons that have been learned along the way to guide you through the process of starting, scaling, and presumably, hopefully, ultimately selling your firm.
So let's stick on the number side of things. So where do you plan on, like, to what size, what level do you see these firms growing? Like, what does a meaningful exit look like? Like, give me some of the nuts and the bolts behind the vision for how the firm profile would look going forward.
Yeah, and it may differ from organization to organization, and depending on what type of services they're providing.
Sure.
But generally in the marketplace for selling a professional services firm, we believe you need to get to probably a minimum of $25 million in annual revenue to have a meaningful exit, right? To attract enough attention, either from a financial buyer or a strategic buyer, to make it worth the trouble to go through due diligence and integrate an organization. So our hope is that we can get these businesses launched and scaled to somewhere between $25 and $50 million in annual revenue over a 5 to 8 year investment horizon.
No, that's great. And ultimately, will you be working on also managing the exit side of things? Like, how does that, are you like full life cycle in this? So if I'm understanding the model correctly, so everything from the initial transition all the way to the exit, like you're a partner in it all.
That's correct. And our intention is to launch a new firm a quarter for the next 5 years. Which means, at some point we'll probably be doing double duty, starting firms and helping firms move toward exit, as we get toward the end of that 5-year period. And so that's the model is, continue to launch, continue to scale. And once we get these firms to the point where they are operating at scale, start to help them move towards an exit. We've got the experience of having done it. We actually took the firm to market a couple of times, so we know the players in both the financial world as well as potential strategic acquirers, and have the network and the relationships to help our portfolio companies achieve a successful exit.
So Bill, I have to ask, obviously you're running a fast race at a new firm a quarter. You've already brought in the first 3 or 4. So what's next? I mean, what's next for the launch box? What's next for Bill?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. And we're settling in with these first 3 firms over the next quarter. That was the negotiated compromise between continuing to launch and slowing down. Was I paused the new launches until at least July. At least that's what I'm telling the team. But if we can find appropriate founders that have the right experience and the right business plan, we'll be on that pace of launching a firm per quarter in the second half of 2021.
Man, this is awesome. And so final question on my end. If there were, and don't take this as a loaded question, but I got to know, if there were a secret sauce to launching a professional service firm, and I know there's no one thing that's going to make anything, work, period. I know it's tens of thousands of things, but if there were a secret sauce, like what would you say are some of those main things that you're like, this is what it takes to make this work?
Sure. I mean, aside from the obvious of having something that people want to buy.
Let's not glance over that one, because that's not always the case. Sometimes that's important.
What I see as the biggest challenge for many organizations in the professions is you've got to get the culture right. And to me, that is trying to balance professionalism with fun, and balancing a high degree of autonomy, which professionals crave, with very high expectations of performance,
Mm.
and really becoming a magnet for talent.
Mm.
Because presumably if you have valuable services that are in demand in the marketplace, then the real secret sauce is making sure that you have people that can deliver. And it's a competitive marketplace, right? You're not just competing for clients, you're also competing for talent. And getting the culture right is really, in my mind, the secret to scaling a successful professional services firm.
Man, love it. This is great, Bill. Well, this has been really great having you on the show. I learned a lot, so I'm hoping our viewers did also. If somebody is watching this right now and they want to learn more about the Launchbox, whether they're they want to check out the content you're creating, or if they're a potential founder, I mean, what's the best way for people to reach out and to connect and to follow the journey with you and your team?
Just hop on the website, thelaunchbox.com, and feel free to contact me there.
Fantastic. Well, Bill, again, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Really enjoyed our time today. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you learned a lot. As I mentioned, I sure did. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button. We definitely want you to be a return listener or viewer, depending on where you're watching this. And Bill, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Adam.